Hi, my name is Wentin, and this is my newest project called CSS ICON. You can find me on Twitter at design jokes or wentin on GitHub, design jokes. Today I'm gonna go into detail and tell you all about CSS icons. CSS icon is 512 icons crafted with just pure CSS. It's a new technology to do icons. Most of the folks on the internet use SVG or icon fonts, but I find using CSS does come with some benefit. It has its shortcomings, but it is also suitable for other cases more than SVG or icon fonts. For example, I create this interface and I want to make sure it's minimalist and every line is just 1 pixel wide. Here, I know for sure is 1 pixel wide because all the icons I created, I add border with just 1 pixel. So that's one user case of it. The truth is I created these icons, 500 icons, almost a year ago. It has stayed on my shelf for a long time because I couldn't find use of it. I use it myself, of course, but I don't know how to promote to other people. The shortcoming of it is not as customizable as any other icon. With SVG or icon fonts, it all based on vectors. Vectors, you can do anything. You can do crazy shape or you can do simple shape, but with CSS, you can only do simple shape. There are a few tricks that I use to make seemingly more complicated shape than what CSS simply can achieve, but still it's very constraining. It's constrained to the ability of CSS. But recently I've thought something. I thought maybe CSS icon could be a teaching platform for people who want to learn CSS. The quickest way or easiest way to learn CSS or any language really is to do a project yourself. But often the tutorial is targeting at something much bigger and the payoff, the great satisfaction of learning something comes much later and is not as interesting. Say if you can just create an icon that you think is interesting within 10 minutes. Within that 10 minutes, you pick up a lot of germs of CSS along the way. It could be a really jumpy start. It could be a really good way to jumpstart your learning process. For example, if you want to learn how to create a sun icon, it's just gonna take you less than 10 minutes to do so. It's just one div. Most of the icon, I only use one div. Some of them that is more complicated, I add a little child element to this div, but most of the time it's just one div with a class name. In the CSS, I define some property to that icon. With the sounds, it seems that it's a lot of shape, but it really is just one div. Some of them is more complicated. I use a before and after procedural element to create that. For example, the sun icon has a different variation, such as the sun with a raindrop. So I have the icon, and I also have a before and after element to control, the other shape. The procedural element is something that a lot of people didn't find out until much later in their learning process. Procedural element is basically a hidden element of HTML that you can control and manipulate and make them show up, but it's not going to be part of the HTML. It's just still one div, but you just happen to have 2 additional elements that you can control. That's how I draw most of the icons. And when you tap on any icon that you find interesting, you can inspect this icon with the side panel where you can see the HTML. You can copy by tap on this icon and say copy. It will copy to your clipboard and you can paste in your code editor. Same with the CSS. Or you can try it on CodePen. You can go here. Then you can manipulate further. You can change the color. I use a special technique to control the color because I don't want to define the color over and over again. So I use one color in the root div, and I just revert to that color with current color. So let's say if I want to change this icon to red, I just change this color. And now it's red. you can further experiment by changing the width, the height, the border radius to your preference. The border radius, most of them is consistent with just 2 pixels, but you can change it to 3 or 4 or 5, anything you want. Let's say you want 5. You just have a very rounded TV icon. Let's go back. Let's find a more interesting icon for us to learn from. What about this super hipster handlebar mustache? Here, it's a mustache. Looks kind of organic. It's kind of beyond CSS capacity, because CSS you can just create a box and then put some border radius to it to make it like a rounded rectangle or a circle. So how did you make this? You can just hover over different section of the code to see what each section of the code does. So I did here is I created the root div and I make a circle of it, apply width and height to the same, and border radius 50%. And then I did a box shadow. So I basically create this little round shape, and then I add a little box shadow to here, so it's creating another box shadow. Another circle, exactly the same size to the original one. And then I use the before and after to create this shape. This is where the tricky part is. With border radius, you can actually do a lot of things. You can do rectangle, you can do rounded rectangle, you can do circle. What you can also do is do this weird shape. What I did here is I basically create a rectangle with 7 pixel and height 4 pixel, and I add a very weird border radius to it. So 3 of the corner is just 0 border radius, but 1 is 100%. It's super bold, it's super rounded on that corner, and then eventually it will create this shape. You can further experiment with it when you open it in CodePen. And same, just another angle, exactly the mirror of the before. I did the other half. Now that's how you create a mustache. Like, a lot of people would question, why would I want to use icon fonts just with CSS? It seems very limiting. The benefit, one, with omitting all the shortcomings of these icons, the advantage does exist. For example, to create this shape, you just need those few lines of code, versus if you create in Illustrator and export as SVG, it's going to be a big chunk of code that you have to embed. It's much more simplified code-wise. It's cleaner because you're just adding a div to your HTML and control it with CSS. And the CSS is much less code than SVG. And you can change the color, like what I did before. You can change the hover color to something completely different. And all the stroke can actually have their own color if you stop using this mechanism of color and current color. Every stroke can have different color. And with SVG, unless you embed it in the HTML, you won't be able to control that. If you import the SVG as an image tag, everything has to remain the same color. But with CSS, everything is flexible. The shortcoming is that you cannot create any crazy paths, but I have made my peace with it. This is not the perfect solution. It's only suitable for some cases, but it's extremely helpful in some cases. So I think you should learn about those, and that's why I create this app to do so. You can explore the search functionality. It's using Angular to search. Like, say I search sun, and I can see all the sun icon that I created, or I can dismiss them. That's all. If you want, you can go to the GitHub to further learn about the code detail, or you can like them, start them if you want, or fork them if you want to contribute. There are already some folks sending pull requests. I will get to them really soon, and really big thank you to all of you who pay attention and who contributed. If you want to find me, I am on Twitter. just drop me a line. If you are not a GitHub user, you don't do code, you have a good suggestion, just drop me a line on Twitter and I will get back to you fast, because I'm basically only exist on the internet. Thank you so much for watching.